The sneeze came without warning. Larsen Jett barely had time to turn his head before it exploded from his face, one of those violent, nasal eruptions that bent the spine and made your ribs regret existing. The sound echoed through the sterile observation deck like a thunderclap. Larsen groaned, sniffled, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a crumpled tissue, dabbing his nose with the weary grace of a man who'd been fighting a losing battle against space station air filtration for weeks. And then everything stopped. Literally everything. The low hum of alien conversation halted. The blinking consoles froze mid-flash. Even the gelatinous thing that had been slithering up the wall stopped mid-wobble. Larsen blinked and glanced around. What? A shrill alarm cut the silence, followed by a series of high-pitched, chirping tones that made his eardrums itch. A tall, lavender-skinned alien wearing an ornate sash stumbled backward and pointed an elongated finger at him. He detonated his nasal sac, the alien shrieked. Larsen paused mid-swipe with the tissue. My what? Contain him, another alien barked. This one was shorter, with 6 eyes and a belt full of medical instruments. He's initiating internal combustion. Secondary phase likely imminent. Wait. Larsen held up both hands, tissue still clutched between 2 fingers. It was just a sneeze. But it was too late. A translucent energy net sprang from the ceiling, wrapping around him like cling film. He dropped the tissue and stumbled back, the net tightening just enough to make every movement awkward. The aliens surged forward, at least 9 of them, each shouting at once, each more horrified than the last. His cranial cavity is unstable. He expelled particulate matter. Is it contagious? Is it biowarfare? Larsen sucked in a breath, regretted it, then sneezed again. This time, the net vibrated, and one of the aliens fainted. They didn't hurt him, at least not intentionally. The next few hours were a blur of containment procedures and panic diagnostics. Larsen sat on a padded bench inside a sterile white chamber, while alien med techs paced behind a transparent barrier, consulting data pads and occasionally glancing at him like he was a volatile weapon. The lavender-skinned one returned, flanked by 2 guards. I am Envoy Seldar, the alien said. You have been quarantined under Article 12 of the Interplanetary Contact Protocol. Your internal eruption poses a high-risk biothreat. Larsen rubbed his temples. It was a sneeze. People sneeze. It's called an allergic reaction. Seldar frowned, or at least his face folded in a way that suggested deep concern. You expelled fluid and sound at projectile velocity. This is not standard biological function. It is for humans, Larsen said. Look, I'm not sick. Just allergic to something. Probably whatever you guys use for air purification. I've been sneezing like this since I arrived. One of the medtechs gasped. Multiple eruptions? She whispered. Seldar turned to her. How has he not collapsed from cranial overpressure? I dunno, Larsen muttered. Maybe because it's just a sneeze. They didn't buy it. Of course not. The word didn't even translate properly into Seldar's dialect. Some linguistic software kept trying to render it as nasal detonation or skull shock discharge. After a long silence, Seldar leaned closer to the glass. If this is not an act of aggression, you must demonstrate it safely. Larsen blinked. You want me to sneeze? On purpose. To observe, Seldar said. So we can assess its threat level. He sighed. Fine. But I need pepper. Pepper. It's a spice. Makes humans sneeze. There was a pause. Someone behind Seldar whispered he uses chemical triggers to weaponize the event. Larsen groaned. An hour later, they returned with a small metal dish containing what looked like black sand. Larsen gave it a sniff and recoiled. Close enough. He leaned over, inhaled deeply, and waited. Nothing. He sniffed again. Still nothing. Come on, he muttered. Don't leave me hanging. The aliens watched from behind the glass, tense and silent. Then finally it hit. That tickle behind the eyes, the tightening in the throat. His whole body coiled. Here it comes, he warned. The sneeze blasted out of him, echoing through the chamber like a sonic boom. 2 of the technicians fainted. Seldar stumbled backward. Alarms wailed. Larsen reached for his tissue. I told you, he said, voice muffled, it's normal. The incident, now officially labeled Event SNZ-1, caused a full diplomatic shutdown for 24 hours. The Galactic Assembly's Earth Liaison Office was flooded with inquiries. Larsen's name was flagged on 4 interstellar watch lists. By the next rotation, he was summoned to the Assembly's Central Forum for questioning. He stood in the spotlight, surrounded by over 70 alien species, each seated in a tiered circle that made the room feel like an amphitheater. Selder stood beside him, still visibly shaken. "So," said a deep, gliding voice from the central podium. The speaker was a tall biped covered in scale-like armor with eyes that shimmered like oil. "You claim these eruptions are harmless?" Larsen nodded. "Yes. I have sinus inflammation. That's all." Another alien leaned forward. "Your body forces out air at over 100 kilometers per hour, laced with moisture and microbes." "Well, yeah," Larsen admitted. "Not great, but not a weapon. And yet your species does not self-destruct from the pressure?" "Nope. Just a temporary release. Like a safety valve." A hush fell over the chamber. Then a spindly creature with 6 arms raised a limb. "Do all humans possess this ability?" "Yeah, pretty much. Are you saying your entire species can expel internal pressure bursts without fatality?" Larsen blinked. "I mean, yeah." The alien turned to the others. "They are pressure-borne. Their skulls are pressure vessels. Their sinuses eject contaminants by force." Another gasped. "They weaponize disease casually." Larsen opened his mouth, then closed it again. He was not qualified for this. He fixed satellites for a living. He wasn't supposed to be humanity's ambassador for mucus ejection. The armored judge raised a hand. "Enough. We must test this further. Bring in the sample." A door opened. A small robotic drone hovered in, holding a sealed container. The judge gestured. "Release the irritant." The drone sprayed a fine mist into the air. Larsen felt it instantly. His nose twitched. His eyes watered. "Oh no," he whispered. "Containment fields to maximum," the judge ordered. Larsen tried to fight it. He really did. But the sneeze burst out of him with even more force than before. This time, 3 delegates ducked under their benches. One fled screaming. The drone short-circuited and fell to the floor. Larsen wiped his nose, groaned, and turned to Seldar. "Can I just go home now?" They didn't let him go home. Instead, he was transferred to the Galactic Medical Research Station on Orbital Platform 3. There, under the supervision of a team of xenobiologists, he was subjected to every scan, test, and analysis imaginable. They monitored his breathing patterns, studied his sinus cavities, and even tried to replicate a sneeze using synthetic human tissue. None of it worked. Larsen was the only consistent sneezer they had access to, which meant he was now effectively a sneeze ambassador. His days were long. "Please drink the infusion," said a researcher named Harnil, extending a cup of steaming green liquid. "What's in it?" Larsen asked. "Pulverized pollen from the biovine. Highly reactive." Larsen sniffed it, shrugged, and drank. 3 sneezes later, the lab recorded enough data to fill 40 pages. He sighed into his elbow. "You know, on Earth, we just say, 'bless you,' and move on." Harnell scribbled notes. "Fascinating. Do your internal organs suffer damage from repeated expulsions?" "Only my dignity." Another sneeze. Another wave of panic. Larsen rubbed his eyes and muttered, "I need a vacation." But the aliens weren't done yet. Not even close. Larsen stood ankle-deep in what could only be described as mildly quivering moss. It radiated a low heat and gave off a scent somewhere between warm bread and ozone. He wasn't sure if it was meant to be therapeutic or simply the only flooring available in the Galactic Medical Research Station's respiratory observation dome, but either way, his socks were damp and he hated it. Across the room, a bipedal creature with an exoskeletal faceplate adjusted a cylinder attached to a humming contraption. Its 6-fingered hands moved with practiced efficiency. "Is this safe?" Larsen asked, peering at the device. "Because that thing looks like a leaf blower and a coffee grinder had a baby." The creature didn't look up. "The dispersal unit has been calibrated to simulate atmospheric volatility under controlled irritant conditions. Please remain stationary." "I'm just saying, if this ends with my eyebrows on fire, I'm filing a complaint." "We've already logged your dermal follicles," said another voice from behind the translucent panel. "Multiple times?" Larsen turned to see a short, cube-shaped being with rotating eye stalks rolling toward him. It had a clipboard balanced on its back and a small blinking light embedded in what he assumed was its forehead. "Do you people ever ask permission before scanning someone's everything? We're scientists. it said. That's not an answer. The dispersal unit hissed, and something invisible filled the air. Larsen caught the smell a heartbeat later like old carpet and powdered sugar. His nose twitched immediately. He held up one hand. This is gonna be a big one. The exoskeletal alien ducked behind a reinforced panel. The sneeze came out with a guttural blast, knocking over a small sensor array and sending a faint ripple through the mossy floor. Somewhere behind him, a siren chirped briefly and then fell silent, as if embarrassed. Did that register? Larsen asked, reaching into his pocket for a cloth square they'd given him, some kind of hyper-absorbent polymer that felt like wiping your face with a marshmallow. The cube being's eye stalks rotated. Yes. Seismic sensors detected peripheral displacement. Respiratory analysis complete. Salivary content consistent with prior samples. Great. I'll just mark that down as another successful public embarrassment. We've also noted an increase in ocular moisture, the exoskeletal one added, emerging slowly. You appear to be generating tears. Yeah, that's what happens when your sinuses throw a tantrum. The cube being tilted slightly. Is the fluid necessary to the process? It's involuntary. You try having your face explode in slow motion and see if your tear ducts don't chime in. The observation dome lights dimmed slightly, indicating a shift in station cycle. It was now their version of evening, which meant someone would soon arrive with a tray of unidentifiable food and another round of questions. Larsen sat on the edge of a hovering bench and rubbed his temples. I was supposed to be fixing a relay satellite this month. You know that? Just a simple maintenance gig. The cube being made a humming sound. You've contributed more to xenomedical understanding than 8 decades of interspecies exchange. By sneezing, repeatedly, he let out a long breath. I miss coffee. That night, or what passed for night, he lay on a cot suspended by magnetic anchors. The ceiling above him shifted colors every few seconds, cycling through deep blues and soft oranges. He wasn't sure if it was meant to aid sleep or induce mood stabilization, but it made him mildly nauseous. A chime sounded. He sat up, groggy. What now? The door hissed open and a new face peered in. Tall, with a semi-translucent head and eyes that shimmered like liquid mercury, the alien wore no visible clothing but carried a tablet-like device in one elongated hand. I am Dr. Thonal, it said. I specialize in cross-atmospheric respiratory phenomena. Of course you do, Larsen muttered. Come on in. Me sinus casa. Thonal entered, gliding rather than walking. I have reviewed your recordings. Your physiology is unlike any we've encountered. That's barely surprising at this point. You generate internal turbulence that expels biological material at velocity. Have you ever considered its use as a propulsion mechanism? Larsen blinked. You want to what now? In theory, Thonal continued, tapping the tablet. If augmented, the force could be redirected. Perhaps even applied to micro-thrust navigation. Imagine it. Human biopropulsion. I'm not rocketing myself through space with a sneeze. Thonal looked disappointed. You would be the first. No offense, but I'd rather not be a footnote in someone's propulsion thesis. I understand. Still, we must explore all possibilities. The next morning, Larsen awoke to the sound of cascading liquids. A fountain-like apparatus had been installed in the corner of the room. It stopped brimming with what looked like silver mist. A technician entered without knocking. This is a humidity modulator. We believe moisture levels may influence your episodes. Episodes, he repeated. Yeah, thanks for putting it that way. Please inhale deeply for calibration. He did reluctantly. The mist smelled faintly of eucalyptus and whetstone. It filled his lungs in a way that felt oddly comforting. Better. Actually, yeah. That's not bad. Excellent. We will now simulate high-altitude oxygen variance. Wait, what? The ceiling vent opened and a new airflow began. His ears popped. Okay, this is less nice. The technician scribbled something. You appear distressed. No, this is my happy face. As the pressure shifted, Larsen felt the familiar twitch again. His eyes watered, and he sneezed hard enough to knock over a nearby tray of instruments. The technician looked at the scattered tools. Interesting. What's interesting? You displaced objects without tactile input. This could be useful for remote manipulation protocols. I'm not a sneeze-controlled forklift. Not yet. Later that cycle, he was allowed into the communal dining chamber for the first time. The room contained a variety of seating arrangements, some elevated, some submerged, others suspended from the ceiling like hammocks for bees. He chose a table that didn't wobble and sat with a tray of food cubes that changed color every few seconds. Across from him, two beings with spiraling shoulder ridges observed him with open fascination. "You're the one who compresses your own cranial cavities?" one asked. "I sneeze, yes. That's the term." He nodded. "It's not dangerous." "Debatable," said the second being. "We watched the footage." "You destroyed a diagnostic array. It was already half broken." "Still," the first one said, leaning in, "you must teach us." "Teach you? Your technique. Your control. Your resilience. It's not a martial art. It's allergies." "Still." Larsen pushed a green cube to the side of his tray. It quivered and tried to climb back. "I think I need a new job." They stared at him, unblinking. "Or a nap." As he stood to leave, the lights flickered. A voice came over the intercom. "All personnel to Research Bay 17. Unscheduled human emission detected in containment corridor." Larsen groaned. "They're calling it that now?" The two spiral-shouldered aliens sprang up. "Is it you?" "No," he said, already walking. "But I should probably go apologize anyway." He wasn't sure what was more humiliating, being mistaken for an interstellar threat or being treated like a miracle of bioengineering. Either way, he was starting to realize something important. No one here had ever seen a cold, and he might be the only one who could explain why humans brought tissues to war. Larsen held his breath as the door to Research Bay 17 slid open. The corridor beyond was engulfed in shimmering containment fields, rows of flickering red indicators lining the walls like a warning no one had bothered to explain. A trio of aliens in full isolation suits stood beside a small, trembling maintenance drone. The thing was covered in a thin sheen of mucus and spinning its wheels in slow, defeated circles. "Is that from me?" Larsen asked. "No," the technician beside him replied. "This was an unaffiliated incident. We believe the drone attempted to mimic your behavior." "I what?" "It recorded your prior expulsions and attempted a replication using its lubricant reserves." "You're telling me a robot tried to sneeze?" The technician nodded. "It achieved limited success. It vented fluid from its frontal aperture while emitting a compressed audio file marked authentic human ejection. There was minor collateral damage to its internal logic circuits." Larsen pinched the bridge of his nose. "I'm going to be blamed for this, aren't I?" "Unlikely. We've reclassified the event as unauthorized emulation of foreign physiology. The drone will undergo recalibration." He watched two gloved hands lift the dripping machine onto a floating platform. Its blinking eye lens dimmed slightly as it was wheeled away. "I never asked to be famous for sneezing." "It is not fame," the technician said. "It is infamy." An hour later, Larsen sat in a small chamber with walls that pulsed faintly with soft green light. Across from him, two alien researchers were adjusting a curved panel filled with floating graphics. One wore a breather mask that hissed softly with every inhale. The other had a series of bioluminescent strips trailing down its spine that flickered in response to spoken words. "We will begin with a full thoracic scan and neural interface analysis," said the one with the glowing spine. "Remain still. Do not restrain any natural impulses." Larsen frowned. "That's a weird way to ask someone not to hold in a sneeze." "We are scanning for reflexive muscular engagements. Inhibiting those would corrupt the data. Right? So just sit here and wait for my nose to rebel." "Got it." A faint hum filled the room as the wall behind him unfolded into a semicircular armature which closed around his torso with a gentle click. A cool sensation spread across his chest like a breeze made of menthol. "Cardiovascular rhythm steady," the breather mask one muttered. "Sinus pressure increasing. Neural spikes detected in prefrontal cortex." "I can feel it building," Larsen muttered. "Like a sneeze on the edge of a cliff." "Do not resist." "I'm not resisting. I'm just trying not to blow out your equipment." The sneeze hit hard, fast, deep, and unrelenting. His entire ribcage convulsed. The chamber echoed with the raw force of it, and the armature around his chest vibrated like a tuning fork. One of the floating panels blinked and went dark. The glowing spine alien leaned forward. "Fascinating. You generated internal pressure over 2 atmospheres before release. Is that bad?" "Remarkable. It suggests your species has evolved to tolerate cranial overpressure far beyond common biological thresholds. Well, we also eat chili for fun, so maybe we're just bad at recognizing danger. Your sinuses expelled over 6 milliliters of fluid, the breather mask one added. Notable for its viscosity and evaporative behavior. Larsen winced. Okay, maybe don't phrase it like that. The scan completed with a soft chime and the armature retracted. He stood, stretching his shoulders. Do I get a lollipop or something? The glowing spine alien tilted its head. Is that a post-procedural nutritional requirement? No. Just a thing we give kids after they get poked with needles. Why would you reward trauma? Larsen shrugged. Because it's sweet? They escorted him to a debriefing lounge where a narrow table had been set with a tray of warm cloths and a small bowl of what looked like pickled grapes. A familiar figure waited for him, their envoy Seldar, now flanked by a single assistant instead of a security team. His sash had been replaced with a simpler garment, a sign of informal proceedings. You have caused considerable disruption, Seldar said without ceremony. I sneezed, Larsen replied. It's not like I pulled a fire alarm. Your emissions have been categorized under 3 separate subtypes. Each has triggered a unique chain of reactions across departments. Okay, but you're starting to make it sound like I'm polluting the air with weaponized goo. Seldar's assistant whispered something into a small translator orb. After a moment, Seldar cleared his throat. There is division among the council. Some believe your condition reflects a vulnerability. Others interpret it as a dormant tactical advantage. Oh, for the love of it's just immune response. I promise. Humans don't launch attacks through nose mist. Seldar raised a palm. We are aware. But the implications of your tolerance levels remain significant. You survive internal ruptures, emit biofluid at range, and recover without visible fatigue. I'm not invincible. I just have bad sinuses. Precisely. And yet you function. Larsen leaned back in the chair, rubbing his eyes. Let me guess. You want to run more tests? No. The tests are complete. He blinked. Wait, really? You have demonstrated that your eruptions, while dramatic, are not lethal to yourself or others. We are recommending reclassification from potential biohazard to uncontrolled physiological event. That's progress. It is resolution. The assistant stepped forward and handed him a small card. It bore a holographic seal and a series of symbols he couldn't read. What's this? Official clearance, Seldar said. You are now authorized to circulate freely within the Assembly's common zones with the caveat that any future emissions be logged when feasible. You want me to sneeze on schedule now? Only if it aligns with observable phenomena. I'll pencil it in between lunch and existential embarrassment. Seldar stood. You may return to your assigned quarters. Your belongings are being reissued. We appreciate your cooperation during this period. Larsen exhaled slowly. So that's it? I'm free to go. You are free to sneeze, Mr. Jett. He crossed the corridor leading to the lift platform without incident, nodding absently at a passing cluster of diplomats. A few recognized him immediately and gave him a wide berth as though he might detonate at any moment. He didn't blame them. The last 2 weeks had been a masterclass in interspecies misunderstanding. The doors to his quarters opened with a soft chime. Everything inside was exactly where he'd left it before the panic. His tool roll, the half-read manual on magnetic coupling, and the small framed photo of his dog back home still propped on the shelf. He sat on the edge of the cot and ran a hand through his hair. The intercom beeped. Mr. Jett, came a familiar voice. This is operations. We've reassigned you to Relay Maintenance Orbit 16. Departure window is in 40 minutes. Transport shuttle has been pre-cleared. He smiled. Copy that. On my way. As he stood, he felt the familiar tickle again. Not sharp, not urgent, just a whisper of irritation at the back of his throat. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a fresh tissue, and dabbed his nose. Then he stepped onto the lift, ready to go back to work.